The Dallas Mavericks vs. Los Angeles Clippers series over the last 5 years has been insane, but this year has provided some of the most unexpected results across the entire playoffs. Over the last half-decade, we have been able to watch multiple league-breaking developments, like Luka Doncic's meteoric rise and the title disappointment but continued playoff success of the Clippers. But in maybe the last year for this version of the Clips and the first year for the new-look Mavs, what can we take away from this series and who will win? Before the video starts, it is important to note that the Mavericks did win today with a dominant win. Luka Doncic dropped 35, 10, and 7, and there is a trend you will see among this video. The Clippers wins were unsustainable, and Dallas is just one game away from closing the series. I am not sure anybody could have expected what has occurred in this series so far, and this is being recorded before Game 5, by the way. Kawhi had his healthiest season since 2017 with the Spurs, as he played 68 games, but he still got injured and has missed 2 games, the second best player in the series and the best player on the Clippers. LA is 2-0 in the games he missed. Without their best player, they are 2-0. In the 2 games Kawhi has missed, they averaged 112.5 points and had 65% and 56.3% effective field goal percentage, both times destroying the Mavs in that statistic. Despite this, in the regular season, the Clippers were 44-24 when Kawhi played a 65% win rate, but were 7-7 when he missed, which sits at 500. In the playoffs, it's been a complete switch, and he will miss Game 5. Now, why is this? Well, Jason Kidd has historically been bad at making quick adjustments and most likely prepared for Leonard to be healthy going into the series. But with a 3-day rest and Kidd having time to prepare for a Kawhi-less Clippers squad, it will show how the Mavs defense really is against the Clippers. But he isn't the only star that isn't performing at their usual all-worldly rate, but also Luka Doncic, who does have a valid excuse, which we will get to in a bit. In this series, Luka Doncic is averaging just 29 points, lowest of his 4 playoff runs, as this sits as the first time he has not averaged 30. And this is a 5-point drop-off from his league-leading 33.9 points per game he had in the regular season. His assist numbers are slightly down, which is really not that big of a concern considering scoring will go slightly down the playoffs, but the scoring is really concerning. Luka is just chucking threes, with 49 of his 101 field goal attempts being 3-point attempts. Nobody else has even 45 threes attempted, and nearly half of Luka Doncic's attempts are. Even the non-3 shots aren't drives, just 4% of his shots are from within 3 feet or closer compared to the 12% in the regular season. He's shooting more mid-rangers and less 2s in general. In the regular season, he shot 61.6% from the field on drives and got points on 73% of them, but in the playoffs, those numbers go down to 50% from the field and points on just 55%. Now, his defense has been very good, with game-winning isolations in the 4th quarter, locking up everyone on the team but specifically Harden in Game 2, and has funneled the ball handler into the paint, but unfortunately Kidd's rotations did kind of ruin that in Game 4, ending the game with Maxey over Lively. But the reason for this fall-off is injury, another star to get impacted by the injuries in this playoffs. He has had a quad injury since last season, but took on a right knee injury late in the year. This is because of the huge load he has had to have this year. Early in the season, Luka would have to put up Herculean efforts every single night just to give Dallas a chance in the game, and even when the roster improved late in the year, they were trying to fight their way out of the play-in. That resulted in him playing a career-high 2,624 total minutes and 37.6 minutes per game. That is the second most minutes per game across the league, just 0.3 behind DeMar DeRozan, and inside the top 20 total minutes played. And this is for someone that has had plenty of questions about his conditioning and build. There's a reason that while he showed defensive jumps, he just cannot do that consistently because of the offensive load he had to endure. That he physically cannot give 100 on every defensive play, and this isn't just Luka, this is just stars nowadays. Now, a player that has been compared to Luka a lot, James Harden, is playing absolutely amazing and has turned back the clock to carry the Clippers at times offensively. The Beard is averaging 26, 7, 4, and 1 steal throughout the first 4 games, just one of 4 players with those numbers, with the others being Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, and Luka, all superstars. Harden has reverted back to his old ways, averaging 11 points in isolation, tied for the most, and is shooting 56.5% on those possessions. Highest of any player with 8 or more isolation points, and has a 1.47 points per possession, most among all qualified players. The only other player to ever put up these numbers in the playoffs in the history of play type numbers is 2021 Damian Lillard, who averaged 34 points on 41 minutes in that 6-game stretch. While Harden hasn't been as prominent in the pick and roll, he's still averaging 5 points per game as the ball handler and is in the 75th percentile. Now, Harden is really succeeding by getting inside and averaging 7.3 points on drives on 60%. Luka and the Mavs strategy for a majority of the playoffs has been to funnel Harden inside and not give up any open step back threes, with Jason Kidd insisting on that strategy over the last few days, and Harden has operated very well in the mid-range, especially in the small ball Mavs minutes. When Maxey's on the floor, or even Gafford with how rough of a series he has had and not live lively, Harden gets a lot of easy uncontested floaters, which he's converting at a very high rate and was a huge reason the Clippers survived that Game 4 comeback. The Clippers have also stayed in it because of the three-point shooting. In Game 1, they made 18 threes on 36 attempts and 7 in the first half, compared to the Mavs 10 total on 30.3% shooting. In Game 4, they made 18 threes on 29 attempts, a 62.1% rate, and 14 in the first half, while Dallas shot 11 for 33. You just cannot win games while being outshot from 3 like that in 2024, and the Clippers have been shooting great. But in the 2 games they lost, they shot 8 for 30 and 10 for 29. LA is living and dying by the 3, and despite missing their best player for Game 1 and 4, it did help them succeed with shooting. It isn't just like they're getting a bunch of open looks either. Just 15.4% of their attempts are wide open, 3rd least among all playoff teams, but they're knocking them down at a 46% rate, the highest of all playoff teams. 11.7%, the 4th least of all their threes, have 4 to 6 feet of separation, but are shooting those at the 6th highest rate. Overall, they are making 13.5 threes, 3rd most, and are doing it at the best rate, and it is not close, shooting 43.5% while no other team reaches even 39%. In the first half, those numbers jump up to 45.5%. In Game 1, the Clippers shot 7 for 15 in the first half, while Dallas shot 2 for 18. In Game 4, the Clippers shot 14 for 21 in the first half, while Dallas was at 4 for 15. This team is knocking down every shot possible, and this is primarily from 4 players, with Harden making 4.3 threes a game at 50%, Paul George 3.5 at 42.4%, Norman Powell 2.5 at a game-breaking 58.8%, and Terrence Mann 1.8 on 50%. When you have 4 of your 5 best players who have played all 4 games shoot at that level, and the one who didn't being Zubac was dominated, you just will not lose. Something to note is how the Mavs consistently played better in the second half. In Game 1, they tried making a late comeback, and though it failed, they won those 24 minutes 67-53 and shot 8 for 15 from deep. The next game, they held on in the 4th, winning at 31-27 to even up the series. In Game 3, the Mavs held up in the 4th, while in Game 4, they won the 3rd quarter by 13 and even took the lead late despite being down 31 earlier in the game. They have the 5th best plus-minus in the second half, 3rd most points per game, and shoot 41.1% from deep. Kyrie is a huge reason for this, and the Mavs still being able to fight back with huge deficits. He's averaging 28.8 points and 1.8 steals, one of just 2 players along with Anthony Edwards. But his efficiency is really shocking, shooting at 51.3, 48.5, 90.3 splits. Just 3 other players have those splits: Harden, who is averaging less points, Delon Wright, who has only had a few free throws, and Chuma Okeke, who has played less than 10 total minutes. Just 6 players have ever reached 28 plus points on 50, 40, 90 splits in the playoffs. Take the numbers up to the 51.3, 48.5, 90.3 splits he has, and that number goes down to 3, only done before by Bubble Donovan Mitchell and 1993 Reggie Miller. This is a historical playoff run by Kyrie, and he has single-handedly kept the Mavs in Game 4 and led the comeback. Because of Luka's injury, he has to take over in the second half and has done his job perfectly, tied for the most second half points with Anthony Edwards at 21 a game. The series now sits at 2, at least before Game 5, with the winner moving on to a Thunder team that is beatable, but with Luka injured and Kawhi out, it seems as if anything can happen in the trilogy.